Monday, September 14th. Very happy to see you. We're glad you're watching. Thanks for being here. Starting off our meeting is the Pledge of Allegiance, said in unison. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember James?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May? Councilmember Mikulski?
Here.
Councilmember Polika?
Here.
And Mayor Piana?
Here. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I move that we accept the agenda as present, or are they the agendas as presented?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilwoman Mikulski.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. Next on the agenda is electronic meeting procedures. For those who are joining us for the first time, we are holding steady with being allowed to have electronic meetings via, or online meetings via the executive orders of the Open Meetings Act by the governor. And this executive order enables cities to hold Zoom meetings or any other way that you go to a council meeting online until the executive order is rescinded. We will go over our procedures for a call to audience on taking online comments through people calling in and via participants via the Zoom feature. All right, next is the presentation section of the agenda. And first up is 5A, update on social districts. And introducing this is our DDA director, Lena Stevens. Welcome, Lena.
Good evening. Hi. I hope it's okay that I activated the video. I thought it'd be nice for y'all to see my face. I know we're all getting pretty zoomed out, but you know, I think this is the safest way for us to be together right now. So I've just shared a presentation. So can you tell me if you can see activating outdoor space?
Yes.
You can see that? Wonderful. Okay. So actually at about 5 o'clock today, I realized as much as I want to talk to you about social districts, I think it might be helpful to just go through some of the ways that we have activated space in Ferndale. As I know sometimes it's little things and they're not always super visible. So it's nice to see them kind of all put together. So this will be very quick. I just wanted to kind of go through a few, things that I'm really proud of. So starting in June, the City Council approved some expanded options for businesses that wanted to allow dining or vending outside. And 11 businesses have taken us up on that citywide. And I can tell you that I saw an article this morning in Royal Oak where they have a similar program and they had 20 businesses participate. So I think as a benchmark, I'm feeling pretty good about that 11. And we know that we have over 30 open air patios because we cataloged them all for a social media feature that we did a couple weeks ago. So I think that's a great thing that we allowed, where they can either use their private property, they can lease parking spaces. We're looking into, we've got a few more interests in food trucks and things like that, and they can get a walk-up window permit expedited as well. So I think that was pretty successful. You might see here, because I didn't want you to see my Michigan basement, I'm actually virtually in the pedestrian alley that connects 9 Mile and Troy Street, which got some revamped furniture this week, some chairs, and we've got some other stuff on order. And we also leased the property at 9 and Bermuda. You've heard about that a lot, and we're looking to explore some safe options for rentals of that park. And there's also been a food truck permit that's been discussed by a local business interested in in working over there. So we've got some other furniture coming up. I think we've done what we could in short order. And I think what you're going to see from the DDA in coming years is a much more concrete plan where we take care of the furniture, we look at what's not working, what's maybe broken from year to year, and we make a plan to bring out new furniture each year. So I know that was appreciated. And then, of course, we have Schiffer Park coming online, which is so exciting. And I'm sure you'll be talking about that in some way or another tonight. But that's going to have benches and green space and trees and lighting and all sorts of great stuff. And DDA is also looking at purchasing some cafe tables to go there that would continue to offer options for social distancing. So, we don't have a downtown dedicated square, so we have to find ways to use the land that we have. And I think we are, headed in that direction. So social districts, if you haven't heard about it, I'll kind of start from the ground up. It's an option, would just be another tool in our toolbox for activating outdoor space. It's the Michigan legislature passed this to allow for outdoor sale and consumption of alcohol. And the way it works is that each city designates a social districts map, and we actually do apply to the state for this. Within those social districts, there are something called common areas. And in those common areas, at least I feel like I'm telling a nursery, in that social district, there is a common area. In that common area, there are 2 businesses at a minimum that can sell alcohol or have their patrons visit that common area. We would manage that social district kind of similar to what we do with other special events, where it would be administered by the director of special events and the special events committee, which includes, representatives from police and fire, from sanitation, the DDA, things like that. So we all get to participate in those kinds of decisions. We took this to the DDA to talk about it. And while they're definitely interested in it as a tool, there were safety concerns about trying to expedite a rollout this fall, particularly if we were looking into any kind of enclosed space. We don't know what COVID-19 is going to do this fall and winter, and rushing something out like that just didn't seem like a great idea. However, they really want us to start getting into a more concentrated planning initiative. And I think that is what you're going to see from us in the coming months. So our next steps, would be to have the council review the draft Ferndale Social Districts Plan, which was included in the agenda packet for this meeting. And feel free to call me or email me if you have any questions. It outlines some areas where we think common districts would be, would work well within 2 social districts, and also where we might think about piloting them. So we might start with 1 or 2 to see how they work before we roll out, 10 citywide. We're going to move into a planning phase where we continue the research that was started by Mayor Piana. She called a couple of the folks who have applied for this and got some really great feedback, and we're going to continue to do that for cities around the state, not just with social districts, but maybe even what else they're considering with activating outdoor space as we move into next year, kind of trying to get ahead of the 8 ball a little bit. We're going to begin gathering feedback from select businesses. I don't want to necessarily throw the door wide open for that feedback until we know, more what we're offering, what we're putting on the table. But I think finding a few folks who, we think would be adjacent, would be good kind of early adopters. And then we're going to have to continue planning internal logistics. As with most things, it's complicated. There's stickers and cups, and we have to figure out who's going to pay for furnishings and sanitation and safety and things like that. But our plan would be to return to City Council with an update and potentially a recommendation in January, depending, kind of on how this proceeds through our planning phase. So really, the point of this was just to give you a little update, give you a chance to ask any questions that you might have about it. But I think we're excited about it. I think we should try to pursue every option we can. We just have to be cautious and be careful about it.
Excellent. Thank you, Lena, for the update on social districts. Are there any questions from council before we let Lena? Raylon, was that you raising your hand? No. Okay.
Through the chair, I'm interested in just a little bit of follow-up questions. So I was actually a little bit surprised as I worked my way through the document. I pictured social districts as being a little bit bigger than they appear to be when I get to the final attachment. And so I guess I'd like some clarification or a little bit better understanding, given that the spaces that have been identified thus far are so small. Am I correct that it would allow for relatively low numbers of people in order to adhere to physical and social distancing? Or feel free to just elaborate a bit on the size.
No, I think that's a fantastic question. So what you're seeing in that draft is the product of an initial staff review. So staff looked at this and thought, what would be, what would be a good starting place? So this is definitely not a final thing. And I think what we learned with some of Mayor Piana's initial call to some communities is that some people are thinking about this in a much bigger scale than that. And that really wasn't how we envisioned it. We kind of visioned it as smaller areas, like what we proposed. Mm-hmm. We are definitely open to your feedback, and I think that's why this is a great time for you to review that and provide us with comments like that. I do think smaller areas would potentially help us to keep, more social distance by just limiting the number of people, but I suppose that plan could backfire. It's hard to tell, but I think that's the other reason why we were talking about starting with pilots to see how they work before we necessarily rolled it out citywide.
Again, through the chair, I will just add I guess this is a comment more than a question. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like we need to rush into this, especially with having a big spike over the weekend. I do want to make sure that we're thoughtful in how we approach this. But I am interested in the ideas that businesses may have for the holiday shopping season. If this provides opportunities for like a sip and shop kind of activity, I'm really concerned that the drive for frankly ordering everything on Amazon, to be perfectly blunt, is going to be a really, really hard hit to our retailers. And so I'm interested in any brainstorming that comes from local businesses to help use this as a tool for retail as well.
Can I quickly piggyback on that? I like where we're going with this, and I am so happy that Mayor Piana has been reaching out to other communities to see what they're doing, benchmarking against some communities and seeing what's working, I think is a fantastic idea. I'm a little bit worried about the timeline for having a potential recommendation in January because we miss out on that important holiday season. And because we know that when the weather gets colder, people are going to be forced indoors. And I worry that if we miss out on moving forward with some of these social district plans, that we're going to end up seeing more people indoors and businesses shutting down as people are in proximity. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have an opportunity for having people to not be in proximity by creating social districts. I would hope that we can move forward with this sooner rather than later. But again, obviously we don't want to rush it.
Thank you for these comments. As the representative of council to the DDA board, it's good to hear your perspectives. I think the DDA board members are also hearing the same things. Let's move faster, let's be cautious, and trying to find the right pace of that. There is also tension with more drinking does not result in more people buying things in our stores. So I think there's also figuring out how to make that work not only for restaurants and bars, but also retailers and drinking outside does not translate into going into a store. So those are the difficult topics that Lena is navigating with the DDA, and look forward to their recommendation about how to move this forward. But also, cities have passed these policies, but there's not too many cities that have them in practice. You still need two businesses to jump in and say, we're in, we're going to play and figure it out. And so that's part of the process too. The city can set the policy, but you really need two businesses to step in that game to make it work. All right. With that, I don't see any other questions from council, so we are going to move on to the next presentation. Thank you, Lena, for this important update.
You're welcome.
We have a guest that joined us after we started the presentations, and County Commissioner Helene Zach is here. And we need to amend the agenda to place her on the presentation section. And I do recommend having her next, but we need to amend the agenda. So I would need a motion and a second to add her as a 5B.
Mayor Piana, I would move to amend the agenda to add a presentation from County Commissioner Helene Zach as agenda item 5B, and move the launch of the city's Water Smart software presentation to 5C.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman James, supported by Councilman Polika. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember James?
Quick roll call.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May? Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana.
Yes. Thank you, Council, for making that last-minute amendment. And welcome, County Commissioner Helene Zach. It's good to see you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. You are so kind and generous in adding me to your council agenda. I wish I could be so organized to let them know ahead of time. But we continue to move at lightning speed. I am the chair of the Finance Committee, and my goal this month is to pass our county budget. We completed our hearings, we've made a recommendation, and now it's just getting everybody to agree that it's a good budget. I think it's a fabulous budget. So, led by County Exec Dave Coulter and his team. But that, so I'm very busy working on that. Do want to let residents know to remember to go to the Oakland, www.oakgov.com/COVID and look under the grants. Today was the last day for the small business grants, and I've been working with both Lena and Joy and Jordan. We've been promoting that. But there are some new grant opportunities coming up. And I'm not sure that the application is posted yet, but it will be very soon. And this is for cultural organizations, museums, art galleries, theaters. These are part of the fabric of our county. And we now have a new grant opportunity where these cultural organizations could apply for grants up to $50,000. And so, we have things like Cranbrook, we have Meadowbrook, but we have a lot of little theaters and cultural places in Ferndale. So I do hope that owners of these places will apply for this new grant opportunity. I haven't talked to you about an upcoming millage, and on the November ballot, there is a millage for the Oakland County parks. And I have been a strong voice along with other leadership on the south end of town. Quite honestly, County Exec Dave Coulter, when he was county commissioner with him, we were championing resources and county parks on our end of the county. And we do have more county park opportunities than we've ever had. And we have a lot of recreational programming that comes to our end of town. With that said, they are asking the parks, unanimously the Parks Board, which has more South End representation, did unanimously recommend to raise the parks millage. Historically, forever, it's been 0.25 mils. And that was when we had just a piece of property or two, but we've really increased our property. And with that, you have more maintenance. And so they did a really good sustainability fiscal audit study that showed just to maintain our existing structure, we need minimally 0.25 mils. And right now we're rolled back a little bit. And then to invest in taking care of the properties, and we are so far behind in taking care of the property because there was no public will to increase this millage. We finally are asking people. And so I reluctantly am very, very sensitive to COVID times. And I'm very sensitive to asking people for an increase. But at the same time, people are using parks more. I know I am. I'm going out hiking. This is something that we can do safely, is to go into nature. And so I think it's very important for us to strongly consider voting yes for this millage. Okay, and we'll be talking, you'll be hearing more about it. And, you know, I welcome feedback from residents. It's not easy for me to ask for this, so from people. With that said, you know, there's, you know, still grants for veterans. We did open up a South Oakland County or more Southern Oakland County Clerk's Office. We do have a building on Crooks Road between 14 and 15 Mile Road, and there is now a clerk's office there. So our residents on this end of town, you can get a birth certificate, things that you have to do in person, you can now go to this new clerk's office. And it also is good for COVID because what we're doing is trying to disperse walk-in traffic to a couple of different locations. Still trying to figure out how to open up court business more, jury trials, you know, to be continued. Any questions for me?
Thanks, Helene. I did have one about the Millage Campaign. Is there any website or information you can redirect us to now, or is this just the first of the announcements that are coming out?
It would be under the advantageoakland.com is where Parks is. And I haven't seen any public marketing material, but I haven't looked either. There's been press releases, and so we're starting the conversation. Oh, I do want to add one more quick thing. I had a conversation today with our head of health department about Halloween. One of my community came to me and said, Helene, we really want to do Halloween. You know, we've taken away so much from our children. Can we do it safely? And they really want it to be a county-wide initiative, because if one city says, I'm going to do Halloween in Ferndale, and Oak Park says I'm not, then we're going to be moving traffic among our small cities. And so there is actually conversation going on. The governor is thinking about it. Our health department is thinking about it. How do we do this safely? And recognizing that it is important for children to get out and have fun safely outside. But the conversation cannot really start more seriously till October 1st. We have to watch the numbers. What's it going to be like in a couple of weeks? More schools are talking about trying to go back live or blend. And so to be continued, but it's nice to know that people are thinking about fun activities for school, for the children. Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. All right, next on presentations is now 5C, which is an update on the launch of the city's new WaterSmart software.
Sorry.
And who is leading us?
Sorry, Mayor. This is Kara Sokol, Communications Director, and Candice Giles, our Finance Manager, will be leading most of this. I'm pulling the presentation up right now. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Candice, you want to take it away?
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm pleased to bring you an introduction to WaterSmart this evening. WaterSmart is an online platform which allows our residents to see their water usage and consumption in real time. I'll go into some of the features of WaterSmart a little later in this presentation, but this is being brought forward today as part of the city's commitment to provide our residents with the best tools to increase awareness of their water use, inspire citywide water conservation, and of course try to save the residents some money on their bills. Kara, can you go to the next one, please? Okay. So the timeline of events is listed on this slide here. We were approved for the WaterSmart platform as part of the water meter replacement plan in September of 2019. We began that project in November. In March, the project was temporarily paused, and then we were allowed to safely resume in June. During that time, we were still preparing for the launch of WaterSmart platform, and we're pleased to be able to bring this announcement forward today. As we finish completing the water meter replacements, this platform will be available today to those who have already gotten their meters replaced. And once the rest of the community finishes out the process, they'll be able to access all of the features of the platform as well. So if you can go to the next slide, please. How it works, you'll be receiving a letter from the city and a reminder email if we have your address on file, inviting you to access your WaterSmart account. You can register your account using your current utility billing account number found on your bill and your zip code. And then on there, they'll ask you to personalize your account and ask you a few questions just about your home and your profile. So it'll kind of show you what matters to your household, and you can receive comparisons for similar households in the area. Next slide, please. So there are many benefits to utilizing the WaterSmart software. We've outlined a few here on this slide, which I'll just highlight some of the ones that I feel are most important. Checking your water usage in real time. There's leak alerts, usage comparisons, and the check for leaks feature, which will walk you through steps you can take as a property owner to check for leaks before having to call a plumber out to your property. Our motivation with this has always been to increase transparency with regards to water usage and billing. Slide, please.
So just a little bit about how we're going to roll this out for the community so you know what to expect and when. On the left side of the screen, we're going to address people who have already had their meters replaced with the new meters from Ferguson. You will be receiving a letter. We're going to do this we're going to batch this out. So if you've already had it done, you're going to be receiving a letter in the next couple of weeks. If you have your meter replaced in the next month, you'll receive a letter next month, and so on until the program is complete. So watch for your mail. Look for a letter from the city water department, and that will kind of give you a reminder about how you log in and access your new software. Couple of highlights about what you can do in there, let you kind of get in and start playing around a little bit with it. Then we will, like Candy said, follow up with an email with that same information if we have your address on file. And then really you're ready to start using this new software. You can pay bills on there, you can set alerts, you can set comparisons, watch your water usage in real time, basically take a lot more control over your account than we've had the ability to do before. For those who are still awaiting the meter replacement, we have some people who we just haven't gotten to yet. The program is still a couple of months away from completion, as well as some people who haven't, maybe you got your letter a few months ago, but you've been uncomfortable having somebody come into your house because of COVID. Maybe you were away for a long period of time. Whatever the reason may be, you haven't had your meter replaced yet. soon as you have that replacement done, you'll be able to access the software as well. So if you've been waiting, I would say now's the time to do it, because this is going to provide a lot more functionality. And if you're rare to go, but you just haven't gotten your letter to replace yet, should be any time now. And then, like I mentioned, as soon as that's done and you have that replacement, then you'll receive a letter from us with information about how to do this. However, at any time, if you've had your replacement done, you can go to www.ferndalemI.watersmart.com, which is in this presentation and will be available online, and use your water billing account number and zip code to access your account and get started. And then I'll also mention that as part of this, there's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of functionality. It's a simple software. It's easy to use, but there's a lot you can do with it. And so if you don't already follow the city's Facebook page, I would encourage you to do so, because throughout the next few months, we'll be sharing some helpful tips, ways to set up alerts, ways that you can track whether or not there's a leak in your house, how to handle spring gardening, watering season, and all kinds of things like that. So that's my kind of final note there. And that's it. If you have any questions for either of us, we've got our contact information right here, and we're happy to answer any questions you have right now.
Through the chair, if I may. Kara, I don't think you mentioned this. If you did, I apologize. But what about the history that is on the city's website now of our billing and usage? Is that going to be transferred to the new system?
Are you talking about data from people's?
Yeah, like right now when I go on to the new account, all I have is my very last bill. I can't go back 2 or 3 years later, 2 or 3 years ago, like I can on the current city website, where I can go back to when I first moved in, well, not that far back maybe, but several years. I'm gonna
let Candice answer that question, because she is the one who's actually managing the customer information within the software.
Hi, Greg. So on the consumption history, we should be able to see your consumption history. The billing history is going to be recent as of your meter change. So if you are on the site, you should be able to go and find actual information from, I think we went 2 years back for all of the accounts that based on consumption, but the billing history is from the time that your meter was changed. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, that did. And yes, I can now see the usage over time. Okay. Okay, great. Thanks.
Through the chair, my question is similar, and I apologize if it was just answered. But will that history on the BSA software remain there, sort of for an indefinite time, or will that be removed at any point?
This software is actually just in conjunction with, so you're still always going to have your BSNA information. This just makes it a little bit easier to track the meter information.
Cool.
Any other questions from council? Excellent. Thank you, Kara and Candice, for the update on the water meter billings. Oh, you know what? I did have one question. What's the percentage of households that have had their meters transitioned, and what's the percentage of remaining that still need to get theirs transitioned?
Sorry. It's about 72% of the current have had their meters changed, and about 28% we're still kind of waiting on.
Okay. So thank you to the residents of the 72%, and we encourage the remaining 30 to switch. It is a better service. You're going to be happier with the access to the information that all of our residents have been desiring. So I encourage you to do that as quickly as possible in the safest possible way for your family. All right, moving on to call to audience. City Council schedules 30 minutes for call to audience, and we are taking comments through Zoom and phone calls. Our Assistant City Manager, Kyle Paulette, is managing this process, and we have typically started with hand raisers via the Zoom feature and then move on to phone calls. So I'm going to let Kyle take this over and manage our commenters.
Thank you, Mayor. So first hand raised is Mike Flores. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. And we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Council. I apologize. I'm still in the office, so I haven't gotten a chance to collect all my thoughts, so I'm reading my sticky notes here. First of all, my name is Augusto Mike Flores on Whittington Street. Sticky note number 1 is I continue to urge Council to try to use all of the tools that I have available to inform the public about Council meetings. I believe this is the 5th time I've requested that an events something be created on the Facebook city page in regards to events, so that way it's easily shareable and it kind of comes up on people's Facebook streams for those of us who use Facebook. So again, I continue to urge Council and the communications teams to consider that. Number 2, sticky note number 2, as you know, I attended the Strategic Council meeting on Saturday from 9 to about 3:30. And I'm still kind of processing everything that was shared by Council. I'm reconciling all my notes. I was actually interested in the video. I was wondering if that was going to be posted on YouTube because I want to review some of my notes just to make sure that I got some things clear before I make any statements in regards to what happened on Saturday. So if anyone can confirm when that video will be up for the public to look at. Number 3 is in regards to the agenda, I continue to urge Council to clearly identify the amounts that are being approved. There's a couple of consent agenda items that don't have any cost associated with them on the agenda. As we move down to things that are going to be voted on the regular agenda, I'm sorry, one more item on the consent agenda, which is 8F, the fence screening. I was happy to see something in regards to the fence screening being identified. I know that's an area of concern for a lot of people who live in that part of Ferndale, in addition to our friends and neighbors on the Royal Oak Township. Right before the meeting, I texted some people at the Royal Oak Township to see if they had seen what was being proposed, and it doesn't seem that they were. I looked a little bit more into detail, and it seems like we're just putting up like a black screen. And I'm hoping that this is a temporary solution and that a longer solution is being considered in terms of beautification and beautifying that. This was brought up at the Arts Commission last month, and we were asked to put this on hold because it seemed that there was some traction happening at the city level. I know that I was sitting at a meeting with the DDA, and there was a potential solution brought up that I really would like the city to consider as kind of beautifying that fence and really help build bridges instead of fences with the Royal Oak Township community. The Siemens Project, as some of you may know or may not know, this is actually our family business. My family employs about 150 people in HVAC down in Houston. So
you're at your 3 minutes, so I'll ask you to wrap up.
Yep, I will. So just kind of keep in mind that 5-year contracts really is not the norm, but I know this is just a 1-year extension. So as we consider a new contract next year, let's keep that in mind. And then as regards to the boards and commissions, I do have several comments, but my time's up. So I will send out an email to council in regards to some concerns that I have in regards to the boards and commissions proposal that's being discussed this evening. So as always, thank you so much for your time, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Next is a resident who's named on Zoom as Taxpayer. If you could give your name and address for the record, please.
Evelyn Elster, West Drayton.
Good evening, Miss Evelyn Elster. Welcome.
Good morning. Good evening. I am tonight taking issue with consent agenda item 8G, almost $57,000 for HVAC maintenance for City Hall, Police Department, and Cullick Center. I understand that the Cullick Center is getting a new boiler, so why are we throwing out almost $27,000 for maintenance? It's not getting a new boiler. We're repairing the one that's there. Okay, fine.
Yes, the boiler is a $500,000 replacement, and until the city makes some decisions about the building, we are status quo of keeping that boiler alive. So it needs maintenance, constant maintenance.
I thought that was rolled into the $6 million that was approved in the.
No.
No.
No, but I appreciate your due diligence diving into this item.
Okay, and 8N, almost $17,000 for 15 trash receptacles. That's over $1,000 a piece for Foo signature trash receptacles for the Dot and Schiffer Park. I'm sorry, that's kind of nuts. That's nuts. That's over $1,000 a piece. So you could put your little label on it. That's an outrage. That is a waste of taxpayer funds. And the cost of the Dot just keeps rolling up and up and up. And is it ever going to end? That's all I have to say.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments this evening.
Thanks, Evelyn. Next, I just wanted to walk through, in case anybody's looking for it, if you do want to speak, if you could click on the participants button down at the bottom of your screen, that'll pull up a menu, and then at the bottom of that, we'll have the raise your hand feature. Go ahead and press that if you would like to speak, and I can call on you. And if I don't see anybody while I'm speaking, Mayor, that is everybody who's indicated that they want to speak during public comment.
Excellent, thank you. I do have a question for Dan Christ to investigate. We had a resident come in tonight and use a campaign for a Zoom title for himself. And I don't know, that's like bringing your campaign literature to the dais at a council meeting. Can you make sure that we have some rules and regulations about that? But I thought that was inappropriate.
Mayor, I will look into that, and I will get back to Mayor and Council on that issue.
Excellent. We don't allow that in public meetings when we're in our council chambers, and I think that's we should expect the same for a Zoom meeting. All right. Next, call to audience is completed, and we are going to public hearings. We haven't had one in a while. So 7A is consideration of an alley vacation between East Camborne and East Breckenridge. And the process for public hearings is that we open them. Staff provide an overview. I will then allow public comment on that so council can hear questions from the audience and use your insights and comments as part of questioning staff as part of the public hearing. So with that, I am calling this, I'm looking for a gavel. I will call this public hearing open at 7:44. And who is introducing this item?
Through the chair, Eric Wattell is here to introduce us on behalf of Justin Lyons.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Council. This is Erin Quattel. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Sorry about that. I was getting connected to be able to present to you guys. I'm the sustainability planner for the city, and I am introducing this item tonight. So the process for this particular alley vacation request was made to City Council, Councilman Polika actually, and it was brought to our attention in July. So what we do for these types of requests is then we evaluate them internally. We look to see if there's any major concerns with any of our utilities, or if there's any concerns with police and fire. We then review that, and if no concerns are had, we then bring it to City Council, where then City Council will set a public hearing, and that's what we're doing tonight, to have the formal public hearing to review the alley vacation. So this particular alley vacation is between 480 East Camborne and 481 East Breckenridge. The portion of the alley has previously been vacated to the west of these properties, but remains open to the east of these properties. It was the request of the residents at 480 East Camborne, and I think that is all the information I have to share at this time. If anybody has any questions about that.
If I could, just through the chair, Mayor and Council, as Aaron noted, consistent with the charter requirements, Council at its August 10th council meeting scheduled a public hearing for tonight. And that notice of that public hearing, that the public hearing was going to be held tonight, was circulated and published in the paper for 2 successive weeks prior to this public hearing this evening. So that the process has is prescribed in the charter, and the process has been followed.
Thank you, Dan. And we also sent a courtesy mailing to all of the surrounding residents within a 300 foot radius of the location.
Excellent. Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes, short and sweet for this one. Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to open it up for public comment. And we ask folks to keep their comments as 3 minutes, same as the call to audience. Kyle, are there any hand raisers at this time for public comment?
Yes, Mayor, we have a couple. We'll start with Rick Linnell. Go ahead.
Good evening, Rick. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Rick Linnell. I'm an attorney, and I represent the owners of 481 East Breckenridge. And I'm here tonight to speak in opposition for the consideration of the vacation of the alleyway for a couple of reasons. One is that it would prevent my client from being able to construct a garage at his property and be able to use it. And that is because his house, which is many, many decades old, the side yard setbacks are 5'2" and 5'4" respectively, which would never permit a driveway for vehicular ingress-egress on either side of that house. That house was clearly constructed, although not by my client, but clearly constructed with the alley in mind based on those side yard setbacks, because even, I'm sure, older cars were never quite that narrow. And if this alleyway were vacated, it would eliminate the possibility of my client ever constructing a garage, which actually was something, or is something, that he wanted to do. In fact, I believe he approached the building department in July, unbeknownst to him that any of this was going to ever take place, to discuss what is the procedure, what, if anything, has to be done to the alleyway itself to improve it within that right-of-way. And so vacating that alleyway would cause significant harm to my client. I'm also going to imagine that it would create harm for others, because as I look at the aerial, at least, other parties that directly abut that alleyway, there are several rear-loaded garages that I can see who gain their access, at least based on the aerial, from that alleyway. And so I'd want to make it clear that my client is in opposition to it. And for the practical reasons, of the impact it would have on him, and it appears that the impact it would have on his property would also be shared by other abutting property owners.
Thank you. Next,
Excellent.
Mayor, we
Thank you,
have
Rick.
someone named Roxanne.
Good evening, Roxanne. Welcome.
And Roxanne, just to let you know, it's telling me that you do have an older version of Zoom. So I'm going to have to promote you to a panelist to allow you to speak. This would give you the ability to start your video, but we would prefer if you stay audio only.
Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yep.
Hi. So I'm the person at 480 East Camborne, and forgive me, I'm kind of surprised that someone even showed up, because in the house behind us, we've tried to reach out to them, but they haven't answered us whatsoever. Well, first of all, the vacate of the premise, I've lived here for almost 11 years. No one has ever taken care of that area. We have mowed the lawn. There is a very broken down chain link fence that house has. There's no opening. They've never come around. As far as a parking lot there or a garage, no one has ever parked there in over a decade. Sorry, I'm kind of jarred here because I'm kind of angry about this. And as far as other houses using parking spaces for that, they have, and our neighbors on the other side of us, we realize that they use parking there. That's why we only asked to vacate our alley, since we're the sole, my husband and I are the sole providers of taking care of that alleyway. I would love to share with the council the photos of the fence that they call whatever they have there. As for, instead of talking to us, they decided to call an attorney, which is kind of ridiculous as well, because if they wanted to help take care of the property, we would gladly share that, but no one has ever made attempts to take care of that lot. And my husband and I would love to actually take care of that properly, instead of having to deal with going around the city to go into the alley or around the sidewalk to actually mow the lawn back there. And again, he has just let everything go, as far as there are alley palms growing back there that we would love to take those trees out. But again, he's made no attempt to talk to us whatsoever. And we just, even the neighbor next to us have been complaining that there's a rat problem back there. We would love to take care of that. But again, it's difficult because we're the only ones taking care of that alleyway. Again, I would never want to take away the whole alleyway, because I realize people park back there and use it, but it dead ends at our area. So my husband and I would love to actually turn that area into something functioning, as opposed to the person behind us just has left that completely. It is a rental, so we talked to the people that are living there now, but I gave them information to have the owner please contact us. And this is the first time that I've ever heard that he actually got an attorney, so, which is insane. He could have just talked to us, but so I would hope that the city would maybe even question him a little bit more. If anyone wants to look at the ridiculous excuse for a fence that he's had back there for years, and question him on that. And as opposed to, if he's going to put a garage back there, how does that affect us because we're the only ones taking care of that. You can't possibly fit a car back
Roxanne,
there.
Roxanne, you're nearing your 3 minutes. I'll let you say your final comments. Wrap it up, please.
Okay, I've really said everything. I'm just rambling at this point. So,
okay. All right.
Thank you
well,
for giving me the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your perspective.
Mayor, there are no other hand raisers at this time.
Okay. So I'm going to close public comment at this time, and we will move into council to asking questions.
Mayor, if I could, if the counsel for the adjacent property owner is still on, the question of whether his client has actually filed an application with the city for construction of a garage in that location seems to be irrelevant. He seemed to hint at that, but I wasn't sure whether an application had actually been made. Perhaps that could be raised to council.
Dan, I don't know if you want me to respond directly, but I'm prepared to.
Mayor, is that okay?
Yep, please go ahead.
Again, Rick Linnell on behalf of the owners of 481 East Breckenridge. First of all, I want to protect all attorneys out there. It's not insane to hire an attorney. That was a joke. As far as the application, no, my client has not made application. My client had began the initial investigation as to what would be needed because there was some appreciation or at least some concern or thought that there would have to be some improvements made to the alley itself. And to do that, my client understood, or at least assumed, I should say, that there would be some process beyond just building a garage, that there would be some improvements to the roadway itself. So the application has not been made, but it is my client's intent, and my client would not want to lose the right to build a garage and to improve that property. I am not aware of any efforts from the applicant at 480 Camborne as to their effort to reach out to my client, but my client would welcome that, or I'd welcome that. As far as what ideas the owner of 480 Camborne may have for maintenance, but I'm not aware of any affirmative obligation to maintain it, or the lack of maintenance of it would then cause a property owner to lose that right, vehicular ingress, egress to their property. Certainly if my client were made aware that that's a city policy, which I'm not aware of that being, but if it were, then my client would respond accordingly. Certainly we'd be happy to, my client or myself and the owner of 480 Camborne would be happy to talk to them about maybe some joint effort to maintain it, but would want to be clear that under no circumstances would we agree or endorse or sit silently for the vacation of that alleyway.
Thank you for the additional context. Are there questions from council at this time?
If I may, go ahead.
Go ahead, Raylon.
If I may, through the chair, it sounds like this may be an opportunity for two individuals or households impacted by this to get together and discuss it before we make a decision about it. Maybe it's an opportunity for constructive conversations to happen before it even has to, maybe before it even had to come to council. I am not opposed to allowing that to happen before we make a decision, but I'm happy to hear what council has to say about it.
Through the chair, if I may, that's interesting that you bring it up, because I was kind of thinking along the same lines, and I don't know if Dan would have to confirm whether or not this is possible. Can we consider revisiting this in a year? You know, the idea that will allow the two properties to work it out if The start of a construction of a garage on that property has not started within a year. We would come back and visit this issue and make a decision to vacate the property at that time. A year's time of giving the property owner to develop, especially if in June or July they were looking at what it would take to build a garage. Obviously, there's an interest there. But I don't want to have to visit this in 3-4 years. I think a year's time is plenty enough. But I don't know if by law we are able to do that.
If I could respond, Mayor, through the chair, there's a number of options that council has. Certainly with the property owner to the south, the East Breckenridge property owner, just apparently becoming aware of this issue, it seems appropriate for council to either take no action this evening or table it indefinitely to determine whether the property owners can reach some type of appropriate resolution regarding this unimproved alley area. I don't know whether council needs to put a timetable on it. If it doesn't take action tonight, to consider vacating, it would have to go through the formalities again of providing the appropriate public notice. It could just be kind of a item that is directed for staff to provide input to council as it relates to the outcome, if there is an outcome between the property owners.
Yeah, through the chair, to Dan Chris' point, I was going to recommend that council consider the option of tabling pending staff investigation and discussions with legal counsel.
If I may, through the chair as well.
Please, go ahead, Councilman.
Two things. I want to make an observation. One, there is a driveway on the property south of the 481 property. There is a driveway. It ends at the house, which is very similar or identical to the 477 address, which is just to the east, and the 474 address on Camborne, where the driveways just go up to the front of the house. There's no access into the backyard, yet those two properties had the alleys vacated. So those people can't build a garage either. So they would be in the same situation as the 481 property if the alley was vacated. And I forgot what my other thought was. Sorry.
So, all right. Thank you for those comments. Are there any other questions from council as related to this issue with the recommendation from the city manager to table this item at this time?
Sorry, I just remembered. I just remembered my comment question. It's directed to Joe. I'd like to make sure that the resident at 480 East Camborne is involved in all of these communications. I don't want them to feel like they're being left out just because we're now allowing the property to the south to take their time to, work out whatever they're going to work out with their side of the property. I want to make sure that that property owner is equally involved.
Through the chair, that's understood. Staff will consider all options and conditions and summarize through memo and copy each legal counsel about next steps.
Mayor Piana, is a comment appropriate at this time?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. I just wanted, I know that this is a difficult topic, and I just wanted to observe that that this is the public hearing process working, providing notice to interested parties, learning of particular conflicts. I know that the homeowner who proposed this is taken aback and disappointed, and I feel that and sympathize with that. I hope that through this process there can be an amicable outcome, though.
And my comment is in similar. Roxanne, I really appreciate you trying to better the aesthetics and make the alleyway better for not only your quality of life, but for the residents who back up into the alley. And then our master land use plan actually is about coming up with a plan for the alleyways. And I think that's still an action item. And clearly we need to figure that out because it is a recommendation not to vacate them. So that needs to be considered too. But making sure that the city helps provide some immediate remediation any way possible with maintenance and get us going in the right direction for both residents. So, and do we need to vote to table?
Mayor, normally if you were going to vote to table, you would table to a particular date or indefinitely. But since there's a public hearing, I think it would be appropriate if council wishes to revisit this, that it have another public hearing. So I would suggest that council simply take no action on the item at this time. It would die for lack of support, and then the staff can continue to keep council abreast of what is occurring.
Okay. So a technical question, do I need to present? No. Nope, just nothing.
Yeah. Now would be the appropriate time for a motion. If there's no motion made after an appropriate period of time, you can call the next item.
All right. Is there any council member interested in putting up a motion? Hearing none, this will motion dies, and staff will revisit this with the two residents and bring back a recommendation to council. All right, get my agenda. Thank you, Erin. That is the conclusion of the public hearing, and now we are going to move on to the consent agenda. It is a long one. It's almost the entire alphabet, so stick with me, folks. Here we go. 8A, approval of minutes of regular city council virtual meeting held August 24th, 2020, as submitted by the city clerk. 8B, approval of the proclamation of National Rail Safety Week. 8C, approval of the resolution to concur in the rules and regulations concerning industrial pretreatment program as adopted by the Great Lakes Water Authority as submitted by DPW Deputy Director. 8D, approval to request to hire 2 full-time election staff through Robert Half to supplement the city clerk election staff through November 3rd presidential election cycle, an amount not to exceed $15,200, pending approval of legal counsel as submitted by city clerk. 8E, approval of the construction of a female restroom/locker room at Fire Station 2 by Design Struct, Inc., with the expense charged to capital outlay account number 101-336-977, as submitted by DPW Facilities Manager. 8F, approval to purchase install fence screening from National Construction Rentals in the amount of $5,950, with $3,000 charged to the general fund, Community and Economic Development, Code Enforcement, account number 101-371-805, and $2,950 charged to the general fund, Department of Public Works, Repair and Maintenance, account number 101-443-775, as submitted by DPW Facilities Manager. 8G, approval of HVAC mechanical control system service agreements with Siemens for 2020-21 in the amount of $56,963, with the expense to be charged to general fund facilities maintenance, contractual services, account number 101-265-818, as submitted by DPW Facilities Manager. 8H, approval of the payment for emergency repair on vehicle RP3 to RP3, it sounds like R2D2, RP3 to Suburban Ford of Ferndale in the amount of $3,737.62. The expense to be charged to general fund motor pool repair and maintenance, account number 101-443-775, as submitted by DPW Deputy Director. 8I, approval to issue purchase order to EJ USA in the amount of $20,000 for the purchase of fire hydrants, utility covers, catch basin frames, and valves. The expense to be charged to Water Sewer Fund, repair and maintenance, account number 592-000-775 as submitted by DPW Deputy Director. 8J, approval of one-year agreements for use of the Southwest Storage Yard as a transfer site for leaves in the cities of Oak Park, Pleasant Ridge, Huntington Woods, and Lathrop Village, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign said agreements as submitted by the DPW Deputy Director. 8K. Wait a minute. Where am I? Okay, 8K, approval of the request to backfill 2 police officer positions, 1 left open following the recent departure of the existing police officer, and 1 which will be left open within the next 2 months due to the resignation of an existing officer as requested by Human Resource Director. 8L, approval to request to backfill 1 firefighter position left open following the recent departure of an existing firefighter as requested by Human Resources Director. 8M, Second Amendment to Management Agreement with the Republic Parking System. And 8N, Downtown Sanitation Trash and Recycling Bins. And 8O, and I think these are approvals of Downtown Sanitation Trash and Recycle Bins. 8O, approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the City Manager's Office and subject to review by the City Finance Committee. That was a long one. What is the pleasure of council?
Through the mayor, if I may, I just want to make one comment on an item. We don't have to pull it, but I had a conversation this past weekend with Captain Ppe regarding 8L, I'm sorry, not 8L, 8K. The backfill of 2 police officers, 1 departure and 1 who is retiring. Through that conversation, he shared that we're actually going to be seeing a few more requests like this, and those are for people who are retiring. So I just want people to be aware that this isn't any kind of mass exodus out of the police department. It's just there's several people that are wrapping up their careers as police officers, and they'll be retiring over the next couple of months. So we're going to be seeing some new positions open and for us to vote on over those times. So just wanted to make that as a public announcement.
Thank you for highlighting that fact. All right, we need a motion suggested by council.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Polika and supported by Councilwoman Mikulski. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. And that concludes the consent agenda. Next is the regular agenda. It is 9A, consideration to amend Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinances by adding Article 8, Boards and Commissions General Rules, as submitted by City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. If you give me one moment, I will bring up a presentation that does provide an overview of both of these ordinances for the public and council. Okay, can everybody see that screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the regular agenda does have ordinances that are being updated that have been vetted through the Ordinance Review Committee over the past several months. I will start them, I believe, in the right order of the agenda. Excuse me if I'm going backwards. So the first ordinance...
Boards and Commission. We're doing boards and commissions first?
I apologize. Yep. Let me skip ahead, and we'll start backwards to go forwards. The Ordinance Review Committee reviewed the opportunity to actually create the first general board and commission framework within our ordinance structure. The basic reason why is in January we began updating the front end of the boards and commissions review process, specifically focusing on clarity of the application process and the appointment process for mayor and for the approvals process for city council. And so that's what I would say the front end of things. Now it's the back end, behind the scenes changes that need to be updated for our boards and commissions. One of the reasons is we wanted to give the boards clarity and consistency. We recognize that over the last several years, our boards may have passed up the city's progress in terms of how we manage boards and commissions to meet 21st century needs, specifically communication needs. So we realized that we needed to provide some general guidance there, and a general board and commission framework was the best way to do that. The applicability is a note that this is only really applicable to all board and commissions that aren't specified already via the ordinance, like the Beautification Commission, which has controls within the Code of Ordinances, state statute, like the Planning Commission or law. A couple of highlights that we just wanted to walk through of the changes. This is categorized as administrative highlights. So this is really just providing a clarification that all board and commissions are subject to mayoral appointment. And so this is just more clear within the ordinance structure itself. And that council is those appointments are subject to city council approval. So now that that's just generally identified in the ordinance. Vacancies may be appointed by the mayor for the remainder of an unexpired term at any point. That actually hadn't been codified. And so we wanted to, again, provide some clarity and guidance and consistency. And also no more than 9 members. We have many boards that aren't statute oriented that have multiple variations on general membership. So what we wanted to do is simplify membership and also make sure that we made achieving a quorum reasonable and consistent amongst all boards. And so we have done that. Around meeting requirements, we look to make board meetings more predictable for all board members too. So providing them the guidance on just making sure that boards are mindful of adopting their annual meetings like city council does at the last calendar meeting of the year. So for example, city council actually sets their calendar of meetings during their December meeting, and that will set all the January 2021 appointments. So we're just asking boards and commissions to kind of mirror that to make sure the expectations are clear on meetings. All boards are, the ordinance is just a good opportunity to include language that brings presence of mind around Open Meetings Act, right? All boards are servants of city council. And so just like city council, they're subject to Open Meetings Act requirements. And this just kind of reaffirms that understanding. And that a quorum is required to facilitate the meeting. And finally, an annual report. This is an effort to kind of help bring to mind a board's priorities and initiatives and accomplishments over a year. This is just really an opportunity for that board to get in front of the public and city council and stand up for the work that they've done and any problems they might be facing that might need to be addressed in the following year. The annual reports are actually based around the city's fiscal year because that's when decisions are made. And if there are any other issues that should be considered during prioritization, it should line up with the fiscal year, not the calendar year. And so the city's fiscal year actually begins July 1. Around members, the ordinance language specifies some definitions around the chairperson and vice chairperson and when those positions should be appointed. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the leadership of any board is identified and voted upon within the first quarter of any calendar year. So as you set your calendar meetings for January, a board should aspire to have an agenda to affirm the chairperson and vice chair role going into March, the first quarter of the year. If there are circumstances that lead to one of those roles being unappointed, then mayor and council do have purview to make a temporary appointment for those roles to make sure that there is assigned leadership throughout the rest of the year. On the staffing side, we wanted to clear up and delineate what the staffing role is. So for the first time, we've actually kind of codified the city manager's requirement to designate a minimum staff liaison per each commission. And we also describe what those duties are, right? Because there's a lot of blurred lines in there with a lot of these commissions as who is responsible for what. So this just clarifies what staff's responsibilities are. We're there to prepare and distribute minutes and really support the Open Meetings Act and all other business requirements of the board. They will serve as the direct liaison to the city manager's office, and all of City Hall and other respective departments. And what we are endeavoring to do is identify all of those and orient all of our staff members to these boards within 6 months of adoption of the ordinance tonight. Around communications, we've recognized that many boards have wanted to demonstrate their issues either through social media, websites, or just actual websites or blogs perhaps. So all of these boards are extensions of city council and therefore extensions of the city brand and subject to city communication policies and use of that brand. So what this really does is just make sure that one, we want to know what sites are out there. And so there's just a publishing mechanism here. A board would have to present to city council and announce that they're going to be, for example, launching a website. And this is the opportunity to inform council and the public of what this website is, what the purpose is, and make sure that it's gone through the general communications policy process, which is what the intention is. The second is it is subject to public record requirements. So we want to make sure there's a chain of custody there, right? Because boards and commissions aren't always static. Those participants and chairs may come in, come out of place, and we want to make sure that there's a throughput there connecting any communication resource back to the city, since it's an extension of the city's brand, which would require administrative access for the city communications director, who is the city manager's appointee in that case. Communication site examples, again, websites, social media sites, or blogs. Really anything that's under the purview of the city's communication policy, which we'll be sharing out with all board chairs. And there's been a lot of questions about expenses and gifts and donations and how those happen. So yes, gifts and donations are always welcome. We just ask that we formalize that through receipt and acceptance from city council, like we would for any other major grant from an awardee who is presenting a gift or donation to the city. And we clarified the city's responsibility to administer these funds. And so that's going to be the responsibility of the finance director. And that's clarified here as well. Are there any questions about the boards and commissions ordinance from council? I would like to, this part of the presentation actually did not acknowledge who the ordinance committee members are. And so I would acknowledge your elected official representatives on that committee are Councilwoman Kepner James and Councilwoman Laura Mikulski. They are appointed during council's committee hearings in January. So in January, they were appointed to the ordinance review committee. This is a busy committee. This is your third ordinance in 4 months. And you got about 3 or 4 more in the pipeline. So this is the most this committee has been ever asked to do. This council is certainly in the business of updating ordinance language right now. So we have about 7 on the books for the year to do. And then you have legal counsel Dan Christ and the city manager's office and also the city clerk who are on that committee. And with that, are there any questions of council?
Before we have council members ask questions or comment, I would like to give some more background information too, and let folks know that this was a project of interest, particularly by former council member / mayor Dan Martin, and was started to be looked at in 2017-18, and with the intentions of bringing it forward in 2019. But with the changeover in leadership on city council, and this was sort of delayed. And I just wanted to express my gratitude and thanks to Councilwoman Mikulski and Councilwoman Brunner James for diving deep into this and bringing this to conclusion on behalf of the city council, and for our boards and commissions. It's been long needed. So with that, we'll open it up to council.
Through the mayor, through the chair, if I may.
Please do.
I have a couple of questions. One, in the section where it talks about gifts, donations and gifts are subject to approval. This is in regards to gifts and donations to the city, not to individual board members. That's correct? Do we have anywhere in here where we discourage gifts or donations to board members?
Through the chair, I'll let Dan Christ address the specific ordinance language, but I can broadly say the goal here was to articulate how boards might, as a body, might either fundraise and or accept gifts or donations. And again, one of the things that we wanted to do, the baselines, would be having a throughput from the board itself to report such money and such activity to City Council subject for approval.
Again, through the chair, that's correct. But as it relates to Councilman Polika's question, the section of the proposed ordinance, which is 2-205, is really focused on the board and commission being the named beneficiary, which would be subject ultimately to council's approval. It does not focus on a particular board or commission member being given a gift.
Bribed?
And that perhaps should be additionally clarified, but that's not the intent of that section.
Okay.
It would not be very difficult to add a sentence that would prescribe that or prohibit that type of gift.
Well, I would like to know the thoughts and opinions of my fellow council members, but I personally think there should be something in there that reflects, board members not accepting personal gifts or donations.
There is a section 2-200 that states that no member shall be compensated for their service. But I think your point is well taken,
Yes.
Councilmember Polika, that it doesn't explicitly say gifts.
Through the chair, I would propose adding an amended, just one sentence to the section of the proposed ordinance 2-205, which would just add that no board member or commissioner shall receive any gift or donation with respect to their position.
Well, does that fall, I guess, does that fall in that section? Because honestly, I have to agree with Councilwoman James that compensation, I think, would be better for the individual, because the
Well, that's
section about
talking about compensation from the city,
Pardon?
not a third. That section, which is 2-200, is focused, the intent
Solely
of it was, it was
on-
coming from the city is really
Okay.
what it, but we could add
Okay,
it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I could see that then being under the 205 section.
I would be supportive of that amendment. I think that's a good catch. All these eyes on this, and there's always still room for strengthening it, which is why it comes to council.
I do have another thought and suggestion. Unless we want to wrap up this one. Sorry. I don't know if we need to talk about the specific language for this.
Please proceed with your next comment.
My next one? Okay. So the other one had to do with the appointments. And a number of our boards, a great example is the Parks and Recreation Commission. It was re-energized, renewed back in 2014, and we brought on 6 members all at the same time. And my concern is if we create another commission that could have 6 or 7 or 8 members start at the same time, then all of a sudden after 2 years or 3 years you have this huge group. So I'm wondering if there should be something in regards to the scattering of appointments over terms. So if we have a 2-year term, that 4 or 5 members serve the first 2 years and then the other 4 are, halfway through. I'm not making this clear, am I?
Through the chair, you're
No,
talking about staggered term.
Yeah, scattered terms. So, like if it was a 3-year term, there would be 3 members that would start in, 17, 3 that started in 18, and 3 that started in 19. So you don't have all these vacancies come up all at once.
Other members of the ordinance committee can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this came up early on, and our thinking was that the bylaws and the rules governing various boards and commissions had such variation in terms and how those overlapped or were staggered that we were deferring to the individual bylaws of those bodies on that particular issue, because it was a little, I think it would be difficult to draft generalized language when the terms and so forth vary so much.
Through the chair, I agree with that. Was discussed. Also, 2-191's focused. That section was focused about unusually large boards and commissions, and was the thought was to, over time, allowing boards and commission members who would continue throughout their current term to complete those terms, but over time it would reduce board sizes to 9 as a maximum number.
Through the chair, that's a point that I think would be emphasized, that it's a not to exceed 9. It's not a requirement of 9.
Okay. And I'm fine with the number 9. I think it would be beneficial if we spread out the terms over the entire commission. I guess I don't understand the concern, because these rules are for boards that we don't have rules for, not necessarily like the Planning Commission, which already has established rules. This is for, or the Beautification Commission. This is for the Arts and Cultural Commission, for example, where we don't have anything within our charter or an established ordinance, dealing with that. So, and it would be for new boards and commissions. That's my proposal. If no one else feels that it's of value, I'm fine with just moving forward.
I don't want to jump all over everyone else in the ordinance committee, so please, again, correct me if I'm wrong. All boards and commissions should have governing rules, bylaws, what have you. They may come from different sources, be it statute, city charter, or simply bylaws. Those that don't currently have such guiding rules, that's frankly next in the hopper.
Before we move on to further debate, we're in question mode. So if we want to debate, we should have a motion. Are there further questions from council?
If I may, through the chair.
Please, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
I just wanted to state, before there is a motion, that I don't see anything wrong with Councilman Polika's request. I mean, it's to have staggered terms is, to me, perfectly acceptable. In fact, it's utilized even on our council. It's utilized in other boards and things outside of the scope of our city. So I guess I'm trying to follow. Is there an issue with having staggered terms, or we just, or has it just not been implemented? Because I see nothing wrong with it. I think it's smart.
If I could, through the chair, I think in the context of drafting the ordinance, going forward, there was a concern that if there was a particular board that, for example, had too many board members and you put the staggering terms, how is that going to play out with trying to reduce the numbers with a ordinance establishing staggered terms? I don't think that there's the ordinance committee, I think, was supportive of the concept of staggered terms. It was how to provide language such that it was so that boards and commissions could really understand how to apply the ordinance. There could be a very short statement that boards and commissions shall have staggered terms for its members. I think that would sort it out on a going forward basis. But designating particular board seats for 1, 2, or 3 year terms to create that staggered effect seemed problematic and difficult.
Absolutely.
But again, the concept and the idea of staggering terms was not at all a point of contention in trying to craft the ordinance.
So, if I may, through the chair, then we're talking that when we get to the point where it's a consistent 9 members per term, then maybe that's something to look to at that point. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think through the chair, that could be one approach. You could add a sentence that says boards and commissions shall have once they're into this ordinance. Either approach would be appropriate and acceptable.
I have a question through this. My perception is that the staggered terms is going to create more work for staff, and that if my experience is that our residents conclude their volunteer period when their life goes in a different direction and they need to end their service, and that may not align with a term deadline. And so I could foreseeably see a lot more reappointments to manage the staggered process because people don't conclude their service in that way most of the time.
Through the chair,
and so I just see this as more complicated management for a one-time experience with the Parks and Rec Commission.
Every commission member on the board. I just meant moving forward that we try to reach that. And I think that could be done with the renewal as people come of terms. We can renew them based on the new schedule. I in no way meant that we needed to pick specific people on current boards to have a new deadline, for example. I really meant it along the lines that Dan was suggesting, is that, just putting it in there to have staggered terms so that when we're able to reach that point, we're able to start that process.
Right. Well, I can't make a motion, but I feel like this is a more complicated conversation that's now being asked of the Ordinance Commission to revisit. I feel like we should just approve this version and then ask the Ordinance Committee to go back to figure out the staggered terms. That is my suggestion, but I'm not the one who can make a motion.
Through the chair, if I may, just one more closing comment, and I brought this slide up on purpose. Dan, is it true that if any board could propose administrative rules that could include staggered terms to be approved by City Council? So using the Park Board as an example, could the Park Board not provide that amendment to the bylaws, which is not part of this ordinance, subject for approval by City Council?
Through the chair, it could. It could provide that. Or if council wanted to actually see it, council could do it as part of this ordinance. Either approach would be acceptable, and it probably should be in one or the other. So that's a valid point.
Well, through the chair, as I know the mayor and I have used this term many times, you pick your battles. And so this isn't a battle that I wish to handle through the rest of this evening. So I'm willing to heed by the mayor's suggestion and have the commission, have the ordinance committee review the staggered terms at a later date.
All right.
So I would like to make the motion to approve amending approve amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinance by adding Article 8.
13.
I'm sorry, Article 13. Got my X's and V's mixed up. Article 13, Boards and Commissions General Rules with, we talked about the change to the gifts. I don't know how to incorporate that.
I wrote it down. With the added section of 205, no board member or commissioner shall receive a personal gift or donation.
As so stated by the mayor. To my amendment. To
Support.
Thank you.
Moved by Councilwoman Polika, supported by Councilwoman Bruner James. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. Thank you for the lively debate on that. That was good. 9B, amend chapter Article 12, public surveillance cameras to the Code of Ordinances as submitted by City Manager. And here's our second presentation by Joe.
Thank you, Mayor. Back to the future. So this ordinance also has gone through the ordinance committee. It started really in May, and we're here now, just in time for the DOT, which is kind of the driver of the need for this. We'll go to that in a moment. So now I think we all know who the committee is now. So briefly, here are its members. The general purpose of the committee is, as read here, to review ordinances and recommend the changes necessary for those ordinances, exempting those through statute. And so in the case of this ordinance, why, the biggest reason why behind this is related to risk management. I mentioned that the DOT itself is a catalyst. The DOT was the thing that really escalated the need to codify an ordinance. There was not any ordinance on record that regulated public surveillance. With the completion of the DOT pending, that will involve a public parking structure that will have security cameras available to it. So we wanted to make sure that we were transparent and proactive in our goal to regulate said installation of cameras on public property by the public. And so here's just a couple of bullet points from our risk management representative from the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association, or MIRMA. But the first and foremost goal is public property stewardship. So it's a significant investment in all of our public property, and that is public tax dollars. So it's in the public's interest to make sure that we are being stewards of the public. Second, of course, criminal activity and fraud mitigation are both examples. And examples of fraud mitigation and insurance claims might include property insurance claims, damage insurance claims, or workers' comp. And so security cameras help mitigate all of those. And of course, damage or service disputes are pretty common in public areas. But the point of emphasis that representative made and that I would make also is that cameras are simply just a tool. They're not a replacement for a risk management program. It is common for cameras to be a set it and forget it kind of risk management policy. That is not the case here. We recognize it as just an employee, essentially a static employee who's going to be assigned duties and core functions and secondary functions. And so there will be a policy around its use. as it ties into this ordinance. The ordinance really structures this in two categories. And this is my own interpretation of it to simplify it. But there's essentially a short-term and long-term function. We'll start with the short-term. It's just 90 days less. And short-term is really focused on addressing near-term issues related to the following bullets. So, pardon me 1 second. The Zoom camera's in my way. I can't read that. Okay. Very much like a temporary traffic control order issued by the police chief, this would be issued by the city manager to address a short-term public surveillance issue to target specific crime, threat, or activity that is apparent and real. That it cannot cover the interior of private property, so that is very clearly regulated within the ordinance, and that any storage of footage and use of that footage is subject to all other terms within the ordinance, which are more clearly delineated into longer-term issues beyond 90 days. If it's longer than 90 days, which are the majority of instances, I categorize these in buckets of records requirements. So I am required to submit to you after the installation is completed and finalized a location of all the cameras. So that's a public record as well. So you have an idea about where our cameras are located and where they're pointed via a map, which is a very common submittal as part of any camera project. They shall not record audio, only video. Footage will not be stored beyond the 30-day requirement, beyond the ordinance's 30-day requirement, except for in the instance of criminal investigation and or other requirements. And we will not be publishing any live feeds or any feeds via any medium, although it is noted that all footage is subject to FOIA. Camera requirements, facial recognition is outright prohibited in the ordinance, so there will be no use of facial recognition in the city of Ferndale for any public cameras. Cameras are also to be installed in a fixed position. This is to clarify that we will not be moving. It will not be moving target. The camera will be fixed based on the map that I submit to you for public record. In terms of access to said footage, that is regulated through the police department. They will have authority to access footage. Legal cases, of course, or CAPSs, missed that one, and or the city manager or my own designee. Current municipal cameras that have installations defined under long-term, pardon my 3-year-old if you can hear her on the ambient noise. We do have camera installations and have had them for some time at City Hall, on the interior and exterior, at the Kulik Center, at the DPW yard, the Southwest Storage Yard, and the water pump station. Upon approval of this ordinance, I will be complying and submitting to you a map of all those camera locations for records. We also have them in the downtown at all compactors, and it will be at the dot forthcoming. So next steps are really to come into compliance with the policy and submit long-term camera reports to you. That will include the mapping locations and the use case policy that we'll be adopting after this. For more questions, just for the general public's perspective, if you want to look at our code of ordinances, I included just quick direct link here to all of our municipal codes. They are all online and searchable. And if there are any questions of council, now would be the time.
Thank you, Joe, for that presentation. And go ahead, Councilwoman Dames.
I just wanted to ask a quick question that's a quick clarification before I lose it. The inflection in your voice, Joe, when you were talking about the current placement of cameras, I want to be clear that when you said downtown, you weren't talking about downtown in general. You were talking about downtown by the trash compactors and soon to be at the dot, not just up and down 9 Mile downtown.
That is correct. I was distinguishing the difference between municipal buildings and these other locations in the downtown. So specifically, yes, 4 compactors and the dot.
Through the chair, does this policy impact any privately owned security cameras on any buildings in our downtown or elsewhere?
It does not, but I'll let legal counsel respond to that.
Through the chair, Mayor, it does not. This is as it relates to city public surveillance cameras, city-owned public surveillance cameras.
Right. So while the city doesn't have any of its own public cameras in the downtown, private business owners could be having them in front of their building's facade to protect their property and be having those in place.
Correct. This ordinance would not address that one way or the other.
Are there any other questions from council?
Through the chair, Mayor, I don't have any questions, but I did want to thank the committee, especially Councilwoman James and Councilwoman Mikulski, for being very detail oriented and thorough in this ordinance. I found, for me, I found nothing to question. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have lots of comments, but I'm going to wait until there's a motion.
All right, well, I will move.
See no questions.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I will move to approve the proposal to amend Chapter 2 Administration to add Article 12. I screwed up my Roman numerals too. Public surveillance cameras to the Code of Ordinances as submitted by the city manager.
Support.
All right, moved by Councilwoman Brunner James and supported by Councilman Polika. Is there additional comment at this time from council members?
I'd like to make some additional comment, if you don't mind. I accept Councilman Polika's kudos, but I'll share it with the entire ordinance committee, and including our legal counsel, who did a lot of the footwork naturally. But we did discuss this a lot, and I just want to acknowledge the tension and the difficulty and the balancing that has to be done with a topic like this. There are only so many options available. We can ban the city from having any camera anywhere that would capture any public space. Or we can allow the extreme proliferation of camera usage, or we can find something in between that seems like a reasonable use and reasonable restriction on how we use these cameras. I can say with the level of comfort that Councilwoman Mikulski and I both took that balancing very seriously in wanting to allow and acknowledge the tool that's already being used in certain places in the city, but putting some checks and balances on it that allow the public to know where these are placed, who to contact if they have questions about them, to know that facial recognition technology is not going to be used because of some fairly serious deficiencies that technology has, and the ways that it's been in inappropriate and discriminatory ways that it's been used. If there's something that needs to be tweaked here, we're open to that as well. We spent a lot of time on this. We went over it a number of times. But if anyone has concerns that, where they want to pull a lever a little farther in one direction or the other, I'm open to that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If I may take my turn and make some comments, building off of what you just said. As I know you and I have had conversations, and you know how I feel about privacy and Big Brother watching you in your cities. And Again, the city, as a council person, mayor, we still need to protect our assets and risk management, but also provide the transparency about how the city is using those cameras, particularly in public space. But I can foresee more cameras needed in the future. Perhaps there's going to be a need at our splash pad. I don't know, but that could be considered. And so what I appreciate with the thoroughness of this policy is that it allows council to take each camera one case at a time, which won't lead to proliferation of, in my opinion, proliferation of cameras, particularly in parks, which is one of my sticky areas with cameras. Public assets and buildings I get and understand, security purposes in and out, but for some reason I have public parks and outdoor space is still a realm of camera free. So I will always be thoughtful and deliberative as well, and address my visceral emotions when I have to approach this. And for those who may not know, I guess I wasn't on council for 6 months, and the Ring cameras came to council with the police partnership, and I would have been a no vote, and I let council know at the time. So this really is something that I'm going to watch very closely. But again, this ordinance, I can totally see Councilwoman Bruner James and Councilwoman Mikulski's sort of DNA thoroughness all over this. And I just wanted to say thank you. It made me feel better about the stickiness I have around public cameras or cameras in public spaces. So that's all I have.
And through the chair, if I may, I'll also acknowledge and reiterate, something that you sort of hinted at earlier, Mayor, which is, to the extent that private parties use cameras in public spaces, we don't get a say in that. We don't get to regulate that. We all have cameras in our pockets. And when we're in public, private parties can be taking videos. And I don't want to misrepresent or be disingenuous in making that differentiation. What we're talking about here is the use of city-owned and operated cameras and how we treat that responsibility from the perspective of the city.
All right, any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem? Councilman Mikulski?
Very thorough.
Going once, going twice. All right, there's a motion on the table, and Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. So thank you for everybody's input on making sure this policy is striking the right tone and direction. And so that concludes our show for the evening of the regular agenda items. And we are now moving on call to council, which we start with staff director updates, which is managed through our city manager. So I'll let you take it away.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First, leading off tonight will be Manuel giving an update on Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, just a quick update today. We wanted to let everybody know the construction at Schiffer Park is finally complete. There's still some tweaks and everything that we're looking to do in order to improve the experience, but it is open to the public now, so we encourage you to go out and visit the park. Remember to safe way. But yeah, we just wanted to let everybody know that the park is open and available for you guys to go and visit and check out some of the improvements that we've made.
Great, thank you, Emmanuel. Next, we have an update from our police chief, Vince Pelzello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Two things tonight. One, I want to thank the Mayor and Councilman Polika for attending the rollout of the announcement of the Families Against Narcotics project that the Ferndale Police Department is part of. This is a follow-up project or program with Hope Not Handcuffs that we've been involved with for several years. They had a good turnout. We're looking forward to being part of that. There's only 3 agencies in the state that are using this, and we're the first one in Oakland County. So as usual, we'll try to be the front runner in these type of programs. Last but not least, we are going to our final accreditation board tomorrow at 3 p.m. We got all our ducks in a row. It's a very short process since all the work has been done over the last 16 months. Once we're awarded accreditation, we are looking to bring that plaque, if you will, as a sign of that recognition to the October 12th council meeting. And I believe that will be the first one since the pandemic that there will be a few of us that show up in person to actually receive this plaque. So it'll be myself, the mayor, Councilman Polika, city manager, and 2 representatives from Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. So looking forward to that, and that is all I have for the evening.
Thank you, Chief. One point of clarification, that is an invitation to accept the award beyond the community to all City Council. So we're in the process of just announcing that event. City Council chambers will be set up to support distance requirements and other requirements of the executive order for that meeting.
I do have one more thing that I just thought of. We have 22 applicants right now for the Citizens Police Academy, which is slotted to begin October 1st. We are going to try and accommodate those 20 in the council chambers if we can spread that out and do it properly. Community engagement officer will be reaching out to each one of the applicants to make sure that they are able and willing to participate in all 4 sessions. If they are not able to, and we do have others that can commit, we will entertain those applications. But as of right now, looks like we have a full house, but keep your eyes open on the website just in case we have to do a few folks that decide that because of whatever responsibilities that they can't make it.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we have Community and Economic Development. Jordan, are you or Aaron still in the house?
I am. Thank you, Joe. Mayor, Council, good evening. Just a quick update from CED. We have replaced Colin Moran. Well, technically, I know folks in the public would probably agree you can never fully replace Colin Moran, but we are excited to bring on our new hire. We're going through the onboarding process, and we expect code enforcement to be at full strength again within 2 weeks. As far as core services, remains to be seen as far as memes, but we'll keep the public informed on that. But everyone, I just want to say thank you to everyone in Ferndale for your patience as we've been shorthanded with code enforcement. Please continue to use SeeClickFix. We've shifted resources around to prioritize responding to issues. So just please continue to use that tool, or you can reach out to myself as well. But thank you, and we're excited to bring our new candidate on. And we'll do an introduction as soon as it's all official.
Through the chair. Does this newest member know the shoes that they have to fill?
They do. We made sure all the candidates knew that Colin had set a very unique precedent.
I look forward to meeting them.
Is that meeting or memeing?
Probably a little of both. Probably a little.
Next, we have our DPW Deputy Dan Natosik.
Good evening tonight, Mayor and Council. Just a quick little update. We are
happily getting to the very tail end of our larger infrastructure projects this summer in regards to paving, water main, and sewer lining. So we are excited for that to make our transition into the fall season, which we refer to as leaf season. And you can look forward to breaking your leaves, blowing your leaves, however you like to do it, out to the curb line come mid-October. So once we fully finalize our leaf schedule, we'll be working with communications to put that out. And then just piggybacking on Emmanuel and Parks and Rec, I just want to give a big shout out to all the DPW folks that helped contribute on the Schiffer Park project. We're really happy with the end product and what's come out with that one. So big shout out to all our folks that worked on that project. And we're just looking forward to making a transition out of the busy project season and getting back to more of our core services with leaves and soon to probably be snow before we know it. Fingers crossed.
No, don't say that. We don't need snow yet.
Agreed. Next, we have the City Clerk, Marty McGrath, with an update.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to give an update on the absentee voting ballots availability. We've been receiving a lot of calls after the almost 4 years of hearing about the next presidential election. It's upcoming, so people are understandably hot to get their hands on their ballots. The ballots are not available yet. We have not received them from the printer. The county coordinates with the printer to is our vendor to do the printing. So once they are printed, then they're sent to us, and once we receive them, then we can assemble the nearly 7,000 absentee ballots that we already have requested to go out in the mail. So I am just announcing tonight that we are expecting to have absentee ballots in by sometime next week. We urge everyone to please be patient, and if you've already requested an absentee ballot, it will be mailed to you. It's too difficult to try to separate them out for people to come and pick them up. If people could just be patient, if they've requested one, give it until October 10th. If they haven't received it by that point in time, then to contact us about receiving a replacement. But they are coming and they will be available soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a question. Do you need more volunteers for Election Day?
Yes, absolutely. We always try to staff our election precincts as fully as possible, and this time is no different, especially with given the how big this election is going to be. We are recruiting more precinct inspectors. State law requires that we have an equal mix of political parties represented in our precinct inspector pool. So any Republicans out there who might be interested in serving as precinct inspector, we do particularly have a need for more Republican inspectors, but we are happy to talk to everyone. So yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have an update from Linda Stevens, our DDA Director.
Good evening, folks. Yeah, definitely second that no mention of snow yet. I am not ready for that. A few things that I'm going to be bringing forward to the public, which we're really excited about. In the next 1 to 2 weeks, we'll be launching a free Ppe Marketplace for our businesses. If you recall back in the spring with the crowdfunding campaign we did called Open in Ferndale with Patronicity, those funds were matched by Main Street Oakland County, and then we added in some additional grant funds. So this is actually something that will be available to businesses citywide and not just downtown businesses. So Summer really has been working to get that all stocked up with gloves and masks and all sorts of great things. And we'll be starting registration for that soon. So very excited for the businesses. We are moving into what would more traditionally be kind of events season, where we would be having small business Saturday and holiday events and things like that. And we are putting some plans in motion for virtual and social distant activities. One we're looking at is a Halloween window decorating contest for the businesses. I think that could really be a great way to have people walking around, but not necessarily at any one particular time. So we're starting working on that now. And then thinking about something like a small business season. Definitely echo the concerns that I heard from Councilmember James about, our tendencies to go to Amazon when we need things, again, myself totally included. And I think, trying to promote this season with a marketing campaign that will dovetail into Jordan's Open in Ferndale work, along with any events like, promoting our public art or the Halloween window decorating contest, anything we can do to start getting people out and about in a distant way, I think will be helpful. We are, policy-wise, we're going to keep looking into the social district stuff. I loved the feedback. It was really good. And I actually have spent the evening doing some research on Facebook with what other cities are doing. And we're also going to be probably coming to you in the not too distant future with recommendations related to payment in lieu of parking. So just wanted to kind of put that on your radar. Planning wise, we are going to also be bringing you a placemaking plan for the DOT, and I'm very excited about it. It was through a company called Ideation Orange in Hazel Park. We've been working with a group of volunteers from the Ferndale Arts and Culture Commission and the DDA. And I think we have a great plan that's going to probably take us 5 years to implement and fund, but it will be beautiful. And I think it will make, the DOT an art feature. And I'm really looking forward to helping bring it into life. So that's all for me.
Thank you, Lena. Next, we have our Finance Director, Cheryl, to give an update on the budget adjustment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Originally, when we passed the budget back, 6 months ago, seems like we talked about doing a budget in September. I think we were all really thinking that optimistically about the COVID pandemic, and that it would be a couple of weeks or a couple of, we're really rolling on 6 months, and the state is still so the example we're get $70,000 from the state, and we usually threw that back last year because it was burned last year. Well, we just found out in their most recent conference that they are not providing us that money, and then the $250 that we normally get, they are not providing as state revenue sharing, which would be a revenue that we can use in the general fund. They're providing it as a grant. And so that money also, the $170,000 is gone, which is unfortunate. The $250,000 is being moved from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, and we have to count it as a grant and can only be used for COVID expenses. So I say all this to say that, to close the fiscal year and to figure out where we're going to be for the current fiscal year we're in is going to be complicated for us. So we're working on that, and we have decided to move the budget to December, the budget amendment to December, because we'll have a much better handle on where we're ending up last year and where the state is going to go going forward, which is such a big part of our revenues that come in from the state that go to the general fund that can be spent on anything. So it's unfortunate that we're trying to push this down the road a little bit, but I think it's just going to give us the best information to try and make solid decisions going forward. And that's my update on the budget amendment that we were going to do in September. I think it'll be December.
Thank you, Cheryl. And finally, I'll leave with myself. First, I'd like to give a shout out and thank you to the DPWA, or DPW, the DPW. I'd like to acknowledge their efforts. Dan, you're right. You guys have had an extraordinary effort supporting a lot of major public projects that just kind of hit the scene all in one time. That includes Schiffer Park, all the infrastructure improvements. That includes supporting some of the work at the DOT after the COVID adjustments. And beyond that, you've done a great job of just maintaining core service integrity, both for the downtown, the DDA itself, and for the city and its parks and its other right-of-ways. So kudos to you. You guys are to be celebrated. And so thank you, and please extend my gratitude on to your staff. Beyond that, a short update on the DOT. At last week's construction meeting, it was made known to me that there are some COVID-related complications with the DOT. At the previous meeting, we did acknowledge that if there were delays that prevented a September opening, it would be related to a COVID-related cause. Specifically, the causes around supply chain challenges. We have many things, many major items that have been ordered that are just unable to be delivered at this time by the manufacturers due to supply chain issues that have been reported to me. So this has disrupted our scheduling, and this has disrupted our ability to achieve what is called a certificate of occupancy, or CFO, which is tied to various minimum code requirements to open the building. So as a result, we are looking still on track to open in the fall, just not in mid-September. I will have a more detailed update, hopefully on progress to share by the end of the week, as I will be meeting with the construction managers on Wednesday again.
Thank you. It's disappointing news to hear a delay, but it's a delay beyond our control, one that we can't change. So, but I appreciate you navigating it on our behalf. I will be disappointed to tell people that I told her soon. So I get it. Thank you, Joe, and all our directors for those updates. You are members. I will start with Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
So I have a few things that I would like to share this evening, and I'll try to make it brief because I know everyone's ready to go home. Well, excuse me, get offline. For one, I would like to, a community member reached out to me. Some of you may know her, Sharon Chess, who's very involved in the community concert band, Ferndale Community Concert Band. She would like for me to share with you that there will be an M1 Jazz Collective concert this Thursday, September 17th, from 7 to 9, across from the Geary Park Ball Diamond in the park. And just so you know that the M1 Jazz Collective is what she says is an extension of the Ferndale Community Concert Band. So if you'd like to get out, practice some social distancing, bring some blankets and sit on the grass and listen to some music. That again will be this Thursday, September 17th from 7 to 9 across from Geary Park, across from the Geary Park Ball Diamond. I would like to also, and I apologize, I'm looking at my notes here if I'm looking down, but I would also like to respond to a resident that reached out to me a few weeks ago regarding wanting to know my reasoning behind the support of Pitch Black. It was my intent to speak with this resident by way of phone, but we weren't able to connect for whatever reason. So I'd like to express my support and reasoning behind that Pitch Black right now. The resident's concern was that it was expressed that this was an expensive project, and why did I support it? And they expressed their disappointment in my supporting it. So what I would like to say is that my sole support of this project was because I wanted to support the businesses. The businesses have been struggling, and this was an opportunity, I think, to lift them up in these uncertain times. No one knew what we'd have to deal with. And for these businesses to have had to pull things together roughly for the last 6 months or so, I wanted to do something in support of them because they've been so flexible with all of the projects that we've had. and have been so accommodating with the city's efforts. And I really like the fact that we will be able to monitor and determine how this initiative is working. So my reason behind that was really to support the businesses. I've been downtown, and some businesses are struggling and some are not. Some of those businesses that I see are doing pretty well happen to be within the food and drink industry. But we have other businesses downtown that can utilize this support. And I just want them to know that I appreciate all the flexibility that they've provided and the city initiatives and developments that we've had, and I want to support them now. So I thought it was worth it. To me, I thought it was worth it to express support by way of the Pitch Black, to let them know that I'm rooting for them and hoping that they are able to sustain themselves through this pandemic and forward. So that is my support there and my reasoning behind it. And if that resident, I will not name you, but if you'd like to reach out, you have my phone number and we can discuss this further. Another comment that I have to make is that we had a strategic planning session, a very successful one, I thought, this past Saturday. I was very proud of the council members and the city staff's initiatives that we've come up with together. Because of our working together, there are some very important initiatives that will take place with time and support in the upcoming months, years, etc. But they're coming, and I just want council to know I'm very proud of you for working together. We did this together. We have something to be very proud of. However, at the end of that strategic planning, I think I was a bit taken back by a comment that was made by a participant outside of the strategic planning process regarding my ability to, or expressing the need for me to use my voice more. This was pertaining to the protests that have been going on, etc. And I didn't want to say anything at that time because I feel like, as I stated during the strategic planning session, I do not wish to be reactionary. I like to be thoughtful in my process and thoughtful in my thinking, and as far as thinking things through before I make a comment. So tonight is the night that I make that comment. As far as my ability to voice my concerns regarding protests or any other situation, I just want that person that made that comment to know that I have no problem doing that. But I'm just, again, very thoughtful and not reactionary in how I approach things. As a mom of 5 African-American children and an African-American woman myself, I will be vocal about the protests and what we are dealing with as a community and as a nation for a lifetime. It doesn't end for me because things tend to die down. So perhaps you have not seen that as much as you would like to, but I can assure you that I do it on a daily, and I'll do it probably for the rest of my life. I would also like to state that as far as perhaps instead of criticizing someone for not using a voice as much as you think it should, maybe you should come up with constructive ways for us to use our voices together and create, promote positive city initiatives and work together instead of utilizing it as a way to, I thought, perhaps undermine a leader in this community that has been elected 3 times because of her voice and because of her influence. So I just wanted to state that. I appreciate your reaching out via Facebook, a messenger to me, expressing the concern of feeling that you put me on on the spot at that time. I would have much more appreciated your doing it at that meeting instead of after via Facebook Messenger. But no harm, no harm. Let's work together and let's talk about positive city initiatives and raise our voices together. And that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Raylon. And I support you in using your voice in the best way that is for you and your family and for the community. And thank you for your leadership through the strategic planning, but also everything this past year in dealing with the social unrest. Keep being you, because we need you. Next is Councilwoman Kat Bruner James. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I just had to unmute myself. I'll work backwards a little bit. I think I've finally gotten to the point in this pandemic where I've started to venture out a little bit more, masked, distanced, but man, I've missed people. And so working backwards, I'll just say that it was really, really good to see all of you at the strategic planning session. It felt good to be together and exchanging ideas and making priorities and spending time together. I also I said it on Saturday, but I want to say it again because I know that we had staff listening from home so that we could have more space to spread out. I really appreciate them sitting in on their Saturday as well. I imagine it might have been a frustrating experience at times not being able to hear everything that was happening because our technology is far from perfect when it comes to trying to set this kind of deal up. You know, the longer this goes, the better we may have to get at that so that we can have opportunities to be together again. But I felt like it was a good day and I was happy to see all of you. I have also been venturing out a little bit. I spent 2 consecutive Sundays over at the police department for a period of time so that I could see folks during shift change, see people who were just ending their shift and people who were just starting theirs. So through the course of 2 weeks, I got to spend at least a little bit of time with the majority of our police department. I'm in a funny, unique position, to be perfectly blunt. You know, a civil rights litigator who's worked with the ACLU in the past, who didn't quite realize that she might come off as a bit of a boogeyman to our police department employees. Because the ones that I've interacted with over the years, I've had such good connections with and surprising conversations with, and I had grown a comfort level, not quite realizing that there's a lot more to the department that I needed to get to know, so that I was building that comfort level with more of our staff. So I had some really great conversations, especially with some of the sergeants over there. You know, I've always had a comfort level with sort of our highest level command staff in having some, you know, sometimes uncomfortable, but needed and authentic conversations, and feeling like I'm building a level of trust. And now to sort of take that down the line, I felt good about it. I hope that they felt good about it, because, you know, these kinds of exchanges are needed, and we need to build trust with one another to continue to evolve and change. So thank you for giving me that opportunity, letting me come into their space and get to know folks. I also was at the fire department last week, and I want to acknowledge Chief Ppe for inviting us to participate in October in a Fire Ops 101 day where we get to really learn a lot more about how the fire department operates, what they do. I remember when Councilman Polika and Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May did this last year. It looked like a lot of fun, so I was eager to do it myself. So I went over and started to get fitted for my gear so we can do that together in October. I also spent 2 Sundays in the last month doing a training, I guess, called Building Our Anti-Racist Allyship with Congressman Andy Levin and his staff, spending time with them, having some, again, difficult, uncomfortable conversations and figuring out how we can all do better anti-racism work. Through the course of that, I got to meet for the first time, meet via Zoom, a Ferndale resident, Amy Lebowski. I hope she doesn't mind me naming her. I don't think it's a secret that she's interested in this work as well. But it was nice to just, through the course of this, get to meet a Ferndale resident and connect, and we'll follow up. And I sense that I'm going on a long time. It's good to see everyone again. This was a long break in between meetings, so I had a lot to share, and thanks for humoring me.
Thank you. And, I just wanted to acknowledge the courage of sharing your vulnerability about how you feel with your profession and interacting with the police department. I think that is leadership, and acknowledging where your boundaries are and what you need to do to build bridges. And I really appreciate that from you. Next, we'll go to Councilwoman Mikulski.
Just have one item tonight. I wanted to remind residents that there is a virtual 5K going on right now that will support our Ferndale Parks and Rec. It looks like we have 13 people signed up currently. I would encourage people, you have until the end of September to sign up for this. It costs about $36, I believe. You can run, you can walk, you can do whatever you want. There are no hard and fast rules on how to track how far you've gone. But I do encourage you to sign up. 50% of the proceeds will support our Ferndale Parks and Rec.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Councilman Polika?
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 things. First, I want to thank my fellow council members for their participation on Saturday at the strategic planning meeting. It was great being in the same space with all of you and to be able to feel your energy and emotion. COVID has stolen our ability to interact on a personal level with one another. And I know people think that we're not a cohesive council. And I think by the end of the meeting, we were able to show that we are much more aligned and much more supportive of one another than people may think. And I think people will see that unity in the coming months when the projects and programs we selected are started and get underway. So I just want to thank all of you. It was a great afternoon, day, morning and afternoon. And the other thing is I am going to be on vacation from Friday the 18th until Sunday the 27th. And I do not intend to check my email all that often. So if you need to get a hold of me, either staff or anybody on council, it would be best to text me if you expect a quicker response than maybe 2 or 3 days, after I've gotten the email. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. And I have a handful of updates. It has been 3 weeks. And just like everybody else has said, I wanted to start with strategic planning. This is my 3rd strategic planning since City Council created the strategic plan, and I think the process gets better. And again, I was just so grateful to be in the presence of City Council in a safe manner, learning what we have in common, learning what powers us to do why we're doing what we're doing on behalf of the community, and what our priorities are. But mostly staff need to hear it too, so they understand what their work plan could look like in the next year so that things get done. We're a community that does get things done, and we pride ourselves on that. And so strategic planning is the pathway, really the starting point of getting things done. A handful of weeks ago, I guess it's been a couple months now, I announced that Oakland County had a grant program to help renters and homeowners who were having trouble paying rent or their mortgage payments. And it's called the Michigan's Eviction Diversion Program. The National Low Income Housing Coalition just came out with a sort of a cheat sheet of the new federal government national eviction moratorium, which prevents income qualified tenants from being evicted for lack of ability to pay through December 31st. It does not provide forgiveness for unpaid rent, and tenants have to affirm that they've attempted to access public funding in order to be protected. So there's a lot of rules around that, but you can go to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which is nlihc.org, to get their cheat sheet of how to be qualified for the extension of this program. I have been following along at some federal policies through the National League of Cities. The Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act is ending September 31st. I'm on the NLC's Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, advising on federal policy changes. And of course, every year there's an infrastructure week, and every year the legislators are going to get it done, and now they're not getting it done among lots of things. And so it looks like it's just going to be an extension again. But if it doesn't pass by September 31st, cities are going to lose more money to help pay for critical infrastructure projects in their communities. So this is one to be looking after, because it will hurt not only Ferndale but other cities expecting money for our streets, roads, bridges, sewers, and what have you for our cities. And then recently, one that I've been paying attention to with advisement from Detroit City Council member Scott Benson is that the Michigan State Senate just passed a bill that approved automated delivery devices, aka Amazon robots, of up to 1,000 pounds and 25 miles per hour. And these devices can go on our sidewalks. And they pretty much prohibit cities from creating ordinances that prohibit them. However, cities have 30 or 90 days to opt out after this bill is approved. So it's something that we need to take a look at. I'm not necessarily for it or not, but huge changes are coming to our sidewalks, and this is why I am letting people know. And finally, I wanted just to share how I'm feeling about where we are as a national conversation as we still are handling the pandemic, social unrest, and dealing with significant political narrative at the federal level impacting the local level as we sort of come into the final month stretches of a presidential campaign. I saw in our police department, our community engagement officer post some stones or rocks had been thrown through a resident's window, and it was because they had a certain opinion of a presidential candidate. And I just want to speak out against crimes against any resident or business who is practicing their right to free speech by putting their political signs on their lawn or private property. And we should not be attacking people for what they believe in. You may believe completely 100% opposite, but we do not treat our fellow citizens with violence against them because we believe differently. And you know, I ran on something I firmly believe in. It was on my my literature, and I say it still frequently, is that local government is the front line of democracy, and people make democracy, and our norms of how we treat one another are severely under pressure of not being normal anymore. And treating people poorly, this cancel culture is taking precedent, and it's depressing to see. And finding one's reputation, a business or someone I know, that the reputation is being demolished on social media for saying something incorrectly or sharing their opinion, and just being sort of swept away with fury and attacks. And that is not how we treat one another. And I just want to let people know that we need to be our better selves as we approach the presidential election and support one another in the safety of the right to vote, the safety in saying what you feel in free speech about a presidential candidate, and then also making sure that you vote and making sure that people have a safe pathway to vote and they're not disfranchised. So please refrain and be mindful of participating in cancel culture and calling and talking to people about why that type of behavior on social media is hurtful to our community and to communities everywhere. Ferndale, I'm hearing it from business owners who are scared that one false, comment on social media is really going to cause their business to go into turmoil, and that they may have to spend thousands of dollars on marketing and PR to address someone's comment on Facebook that happens not to be true. So this is something that we need to be very mindful of. So with that, I am very hopeful and optimistic about the 7,000 absentee ballots that have been already requested. And I know that we're going to have a great voter turnout, and our residents are going to peacefully vote for the candidate that they best support. So with that, it is 9:41. I believe this is the earliest meeting that we have concluded in the 9 months that we've been on council. So congratulations to all of us for getting done before 10 p.m. And with that, it is 9:42, and I conclude our city council meeting. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.